Hi geeks, welcome to one more episode of Next Week in History, the program that fuels your passion for fun facts while keeping you entertained. Thanks again to all of you, we're still small but growing with your help. Monday, December 21st. On December 21st, 1898, wife and husband Marie and Pierre Curie isolated a new element that came to be called radium, which became a landmark moment in the history of chemistry and physics. 5 years after that, they together won a Nobel Prize in Physics for their discovery, making Marie Curie the first woman to win a Nobel Prize. As for Pierre, his satisfaction over winning a Nobel was short-lived. He was run over by a horse-drawn carriage and killed in an accident in Paris in 1906. Marie continued with their work, and she became the first person to receive a second Nobel Prize in 1911, this time for chemistry. She spent the rest of her life in science, much of it promoting the healing properties of radium. Ironically, it's that very long-term exposure to radioactivity that killed her in 1934. In fact, Curie's notes from the 1890s are still considered too dangerous to handle without protection due to the high levels of radioactivity. Extra fun fact, did you know that the Curie family has won a total of 5 Nobel Prizes, with 2 of Marie's daughters winning a Nobel Prize in Chemistry in 1935 and a Nobel Peace Prize in 1965? What an amazing family. Tuesday, December 22nd. You know Christmas is coming when the Christmas tree lights start popping. But did you know that they were invented today, December 22nd, back in 1882? Before electric lights, Christmas trees were decorated with candles, but chances of waking up to your home on fire were pretty high back then. Edward Johnson, an associate inventor of Thomas Edison, changed all that, and on December 22nd, 1882, proudly displayed at his home on Fifth Avenue in New York City his very own Christmas tree with 80 red, white and blue electric incandescent light bulbs the size of walnuts, making him the father of electric Christmas tree lights. Of course, electricity was not completely safe either. In fact, ironically, Edward Johnson himself died of an electrical accident. Moreover, these lights were initially too expensive, so they did not replace candles until 1930. But today, well, they are everywhere, not only on trees. And as beautiful as that is, it creates a big problem because Christmas lights break easily and they are a pain to repair. So here comes a fun fact. Do you know what happens when you recycle them? Well, they end up in Qizhou, China, the world's capital for unwanted Christmas lights, where they get chopped and the insulation is turned into sleeper soles. So now you know why walking around with those comfy slippers makes you get in Christmas mood. Wednesday, December 23rd. December 23rd brings more Christmas-related fun facts, of course. On this day in 1823, the poem A Visit from St. Nicholas, more commonly known as The Night Before Christmas, was published, establishing most of the conceptions of Santa Claus in still use today, and had a massive impact on the history of Christmas gift-giving, launching an industry that generates about 19% of the total yearly retail sales in the US. Nice. The poem was originally released anonymously, but it is widely attributed to Clement Clarke Moore, who supposedly got the inspiration on a snowy winter's day during a shopping trip on a sleigh. This poem popularized the flying reindeers, the sleigh, the Santa look with his overweight issues, the stockings, the chimney, and of course, the gift-giving. Wow, not bad for a poem. Now, you might have heard that Santa Claus wears red and white because of Coca-Cola advertising campaigns in the 1930s, but that is an urban legend. The campaign existed, but Santa was already wearing red and white before that. Now, for all those sick of Christmas already, December 23rd also marks the day in 1889 when famous artist Vincent van Gogh sliced his left ear and sent it wrapped on a package to fellow artist Gauguin after he told Van Gogh that he was leaving him to go to Paris. That's what I call a Christmas present with a personal touch. Thursday, December 24th. On December 24th, 1968, the crew of Apollo 8 became the first group of humans to orbit another world and the first to witness Earthrise as they were orbiting the moon. That event was broadcasted live and became the most watched television broadcast to that date. Apollo 8 astronauts Farm Borman, Jim Lovell, and Bill Anders later explained that NASA only told them that they would have the largest audience ever, but instead of giving them a script, just asked them to do something appropriate. Okay? Well, they decided to take turns during the broadcast reading the first 10 verses of the creation from the book of Genesis, considered a common foundation for many of the world's religions. They finished their transmission wishing good night, good luck, and Merry Christmas for everyone back on the good earth. One of the pictures taken on that day became one of the most influential pictures in history, and it has been credited for inspiring the beginning of the environmental movement, showing a small, fragile but beautiful Earth above the dead, colorless moon's surface amongst the vast emptiness of space. We are a small oasis worth preserving. We are the people of the Earth. Friday, December 25th. You will be expecting that today we will talk about the origins of Christmas, which you might already know is a combination of ancient Roman and Nordic celebrations that Pope Liverius in the year 354 decided were ideal to commemorate the birth of Jesus, which he decided to celebrate on December 25th. But on this day, we have another birth to celebrate, Sir Isaac Newton, a god of science born on December 25th, 1642. Newton's most famous work and contribution to humanity are his laws of motion and universal gravitation, which really define our view of the physical universe. But he's also one of the father of calculus, so if you're struggling studying for your math exam, remember, it's his fault. Now, you might be wondering now about the famous apple incident. Well, it seems it's true that Newton admitted that he was inspired to create the theory of gravitation by watching the fall of an apple from a tree. However, it seems that the apple never hit his head. Fun fact, did you know that some atheists celebrate December 25th as Newtonmas, sending cards with reasons, greetings, and exchanging boxes of apples? Merry Newtonmas to all! Ho ho ho! Saturday, December 26th. December 26 marks a sad anniversary. 11 years ago, a mega earthquake triggered a tsunami over Southeast Asia, killing more than 200,000 people in one of the world's natural disasters in recorded history. But this day brings even way more death, because it celebrates the birth in 1893 of Mao Zedong, the first leader of Communist China, often referred as Chairman Mao and considered by a long margin as the man that killed the most people in history, with a total death toll resulting from his leadership between 49 and 78 million deaths. That is, more than Hitler and Stalin combined. Now, this is a very controversial topic since Mao is the one that on October 1st, 1949 proclaimed the foundation of the People's Republic of China as leader of the Chinese Communist Party, so it is perceived as a hero by many. And sure, generally speaking, he left China much richer, with a longer life expectancy, double its population, and with much more confidence on itself. However, at what a cost! To consolidate his power, he established quotas of public executions, sent millions to labor camps, and drove hundreds of thousands to commit suicide. In Shanghai, it is said, suicide by jumping from tall buildings became so commonplace that residents avoided walking on the pavement near skyscrapers for fear that suicides might land on them. His Great Leap Forward campaign created a famine with a death toll from 18 to 45 million people. He even had a campaign to supposedly encourage freedom to express opinion, which was only used to identify and kill 500,000 critics and intellectuals. And his Cultural Revolution destroyed tons of cultural heritage and meant a huge loss of human capital. Wow! What an intense day after Christmas. Sunday, December 27th. December 27th is a day for celebration for women around the world since in 1845 anesthesia was used for the first time for childbirth when Dr. Crawford Williamson Long helped deliver his own child in Jefferson, Georgia. Labor had been portrayed as a painful, life-threatening and fearsome event since the earliest recorded history and has held that status until the last century. So you would think that everybody would celebrate the use of anesthesia. No way. The British Church argued that this human intervention in the miracle of birth was the sin against the will of God. What the? Of course you are all guys, it's so easy for you to say. Anyway, all that quickly changed after Queen Victoria, which hated labor, decided to give birth to her 8th child using chloroform, after which she said, "Oh, that blessed chloroform, so soothing, so quieting and delightful beyond measure." Anesthetics were from then used increasingly for labor pain, and the resulting drop in mortality in both mother and infant were attributed in part at least to the absence of pain, which permitted the midwife and obstetrician to work more freely in difficult labors. So with this great moment to liberate women from pain, we finish this episode of Next Week in History. We hope you like it. Please remember to share with your friends, spread the love. We need you guys. And as always, please remember, with coconuts, be happy, have fun, and let's go nuts. See you next week, geeks!